Hi, Kality here. And, ooh, what was that? So, it's 2 a.m. right now. And you know what I like doing when it's 2 a.m.? Playing Minecraft and reading some horror stories on Reddit. Ooh, what's this? So, I'm currently trying out this new cozy mod pack by Josie's Little Cafe, and it's called Nap Time. So it's a cozy mod pack. So if you would like to try this mod pack yourself, I put the link in the description so you can try it out and just have fun. I would like to give a shout out to Baby Jamie 1 for inventing or at least popularizing this genre. I didn't know this kind of niche actually would work, like reading Reddit stories and playing Minecraft. So yeah, it's really fun. I love both activities, and I think if I could read the stories that I love reading, that would actually provide some value to you guys. We'll be reading some true scary stories on Reddit because I feel like most... Hello! It's Cardinal! Why are you? Are you poisoned? Hello? Oh, it's Luck! How do you... Wait, I think I can tame you. I need to find seeds. Oh my god. So yeah, I'll be reading some true scary stories on Reddit, and you don't have to worry because none of them are traumatizing or straight up unsettling. I don't want you guys while trying to sleep or trying to work, trying to focus, you know, and then you'll be listening to something that is so upsetting and disturbing that it would ruin your day and possibly remind you of a horrible experience in the past. So I don't want any of that to happen, and these stories are really fun. They're grounded, they're quite nice, like this cabin. Ooh, I think we're just gonna start reading some stories. Okay, so the first story is Creepiest Experience I've Ever Had While Driving by a user named 𝓁𝒾𝓉𝓿. My brother, 25 male, and I, 23 female, were driving home from the Watershed Festival in Washington. We were driving back around 3 a.m. through the gorge a bit outside of Portland. If you're not familiar with this area, the highway runs right along a river and you're surrounded by trees. Since it was 3 a.m., there are no other cars inside, just pitch black. My brother and I were listening to a true crime podcast, which definitely contributed to the mood, regrettably. There are no other cars around us until we suddenly see a car up in front of us. When they see us, they suddenly turn on their right turn signal and pull off the 2-lane road. My brother found this odd, but I thought, hey, maybe they just don't want us behind them. Well, fair enough. I realized very quickly this wasn't the case because once they pulled back onto the road behind us, they suddenly sped up until they were right on our tail. Then, they moved into the left lane and cut back into the right lane in front of us. Odd. But I've seen weirder. Well, this is where things take a turn. Once they've cut in front of us, they put on their right turn signal again and pull off. Now my brother and I are getting a little creeped out because, keep in mind, it is pitch black outside. There are no other cars and you can really only go one direction. We pass them again and I tell my brother to move into the left lane and just keep going. Once we pass them, they pull back onto the road again. They speed up in the right lane until they're about 500 feet behind us. I'm keeping an eye on them in the rearview mirror. They suddenly switch their lights off. My skin crawled. We have no idea where they are, but we know they're behind us. Suddenly, our car's blind spot monitor goes off, and we know their car is right by us. The car suddenly switched their lights back on and speeds past us. By this point, we saw another car's headlights coming behind us, and a sigh of relief washed over me. We didn't see the car again after that. I'm 99.9% sure it was just some bored teenager trying to give us the creeps, and they did a great job, but I sometimes wonder if they had any other intentions. So this story is quite interesting because it is very straightforward. When I was browsing the subreddit, this one immediately caught my eye. The writing is really good. It's apparently true, and I do feel like it can be true. It is very possible that this thing can happen in real life. There's nothing too disturbing. There's nothing that seems paranormal or supernatural. And yeah, I really love this story. And yeah, I hope you guys love this story as well. So the next scary story is titled Old Man at the Bar. Apparently this is a repost and an update. And it's by a user named 𝓈𝓉𝒶𝓎6969. True scary certified. Okay, here goes. Friday. I, female 28, work as a bartender in a bar or a restaurant. Tonight at work, I have a very strange old man come in for a drink. As soon as he sat down, I had a bad feeling about him. He ordered a beer and started talking about his day and whatnot. He said he's from the area, but moved to the state capital back in the 70s or 80s, and that he visits for 1 week every July. This conversation was normal for about 10 minutes. He continued by telling me about his family and what it was like growing up here. After the conversation had finished, he pulled out envelopes with stacks of photos in them. My gut was telling me the photos were something bad, but I'd hope it was just photos from his trips. The first one was an AI-generated photo of a cat on a surfboard, but after that, all the other ones were of young women. The photos were all AI-generated, and all the women in the photos he was showing me were celebrities wearing a typical Daisy Duke outfit. I tried to be friendly and told him how crazy it is that the internet can make these photos of celebrities to look so real. At one point he did show me a picture of a real lady that he watches on YouTube, but it was similar to the other photos. She was wearing tiny shorts, bent over the engine of her truck. At this point, the cooks were leaving for the night and I was the only employee left in the building. The owner was in the office working on paperwork. I went back to let my boss know that I was getting a really weird vibe from this guy. He agreed, saying the cooks were talking about him and the coworker had talked to the old man the previous night outside of work. He thanked me for letting me know, asked me to get him if anything else happens, and I went back to work. He shuffled through his photos again, looking for some to show me, but let me know he couldn't show me any because the women were only wearing their panties and nothing at all. I tried to avoid the guy after that, but there were only a few other patrons in the building and they were all sitting at the tables. I went to do some cleaning behind the bar and he started talking about the girl from YouTube and how young and pretty she is. He pointed out that she looks like a teenager and that's why he liked her photos so much. And that's why he liked her videos so much. But he told me that she's in her 30s. As a woman similar in age and looks, this made me extremely uncomfortable. I ignored the comments about her and he started talking about his family again. I was responding with the bare minimum responses, just trying to make it to close in 15 minutes. All the other patrons had left at this point, except him, and I let him know that we would be closing very soon and he should start gathering his things. Instead of picking up his photos, he said something about why he moved to the state capital. I was barely listening at this point until he said he was told to leave the city. I didn't say anything or ask anything about it, but he continued saying that the county court had him sent away all those years ago. At this point, I'm about to just tell the owner to kick him out when he started talking about why he was sent there. It was a story of how he did something breast related to a girl in elementary school. I'm not very good at guessing people's ages. There's no way this man was in elementary school in the 70s or 80s. He said the girl told the teacher on him even though it didn't happen, but no one believed him, so he got sent away. He said he was resentful towards this girl for many years until he heard she has special needs and isn't mentally capable of making up a lie like that. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't tell if he was saying he did it or if he was implying the teacher was the one who was lying. We were closing in like 2 minutes at this point, so I tried to wrap up his conversation by telling him I hope his trip was nice and to have a safe trip home. He slowly packed his things and I walked around the bar to the tables by the front door to lock it after he left. He walked towards the door, slower than I've ever seen anyone walk, and he always walks towards me even if I was standing away from the door. I was terrified at this point, so I called my husband and put my phone in my pocket in case something happened. At that moment, the owner turned half the lights off and walked to me. I politely told the man he has to leave now, and again I said I hope he has a safe trip. As he opened the door to leave, he turned back around, made an eye contact with me, which he hadn't done the whole time he was there, and said, "I'll probably be back in tomorrow to see you. I don't leave town until Sunday." Update. Saturday. I went to work tonight and immediately told my coworkers of the encounter. We were all joking around about the man. At one point I told them, if he does come back in, I'm going to card him just to get his name so I can do a Google search on him. I wanted to know if he was just creepy or if there was a legit reason my gut wasn't sitting right about him. My coworker who had talked to him outside of work interjected, telling us his first name. The rest of the night went by smooth and the old man hadn't come back. Some male coworkers walked all the women out to their cars just to make sure they're left safe in case he was lingering outside. When I got home, I spent an hour or so searching for this man online. I'd look at mugshots for all the men who shared his first name, and eventually I found him and my heart dropped. I clicked on his mugshot and was met with an article about a murder that occurred in the 90s. In the article, it stated that he was the prime suspect in the murder. The only DNA evidence police had found was linked to him. He was sent to prison, and after investigations revealed his mental state, they did another round of testing on the DNA. The second round came up saying that he wasn't the killer, so he got released. I then found a handful of Reddit posts from the state capital about the old man. He's somewhat famous in the area for creeping out young women at their workplaces. The stories were eerily similar to mine and even happened to mothers in their teen and now their teen daughters. I learned that a majority of people strongly believe this man was guilty of the murder, and after everything I had read, I believed it too. I had an overwhelming sense that I should not have engaged with this man as much as I had, and I shouldn't have been polite. I've only been able to sleep for a few hours this past few nights. I'm not necessarily scared of him, but I can't stop thinking about these teen girls who see him regularly. I had one encounter and it shook me to my core. I hope I never meet this man ever again. Well, this is a very creepy story. Even scarier than a lot of no sleeps, to be honest. Because the idea of this man from the past, from the 90s, who was involved in a murder case, to walk freely and nobody really knows who he is, that is messed up. And if this was true, it's horrible. It's horrible what happened to the girls, the teenage girls, the women who had to encounter this man. Like AI generated photos of celebrities in revealing outfits. That's a huge red flag. I mean, like, a red flag is an understatement. If I were this woman, right, I would just call the police. I don't care. It's just like no normal person would do this. There's no way that a normal person or a normal man or a normal old man would carry a collection of photos, AI generated photos, with him outside to public spaces, and all these photos are young women and celebrities. It feels like a fetish thing. But I know that I said there would be no triggering things. I picked this story because yes, it is creepy, it is disturbing, but thankfully the author didn't really go into the full detail of the man, of whatever this man is doing back in the 90s. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good story. Alright, on to the next story. This one is titled "I Still Don't Know What We Saw That Night" by user 𝓈𝓉𝒶𝓎. I'm not posting this to scare anyone. I just need to put this somewhere because it's been stuck in my head for years. If anyone experienced something similar in the area, I'd love to hear about it. This happened when I was about 18 or 19. It was summer night, probably late July or early August. It was warm out, so a friend and I had gotten into the habit of driving around late at night just to talk. We'd do loops outside the city, the kind of quiet, empty roads that cut through the French countryside. No real destination, just driving and talking. Windows cracked, music low. This one night, it was around 1:30 a.m. The road was completely empty. No street lights, no visible houses, just open fields on both sides. We were going slow, maybe 50 kilometers per hour, talking about something personal. And then suddenly, my friend hit the brakes. He didn't yell or panic, just a sharp, reflexive stop. And there, in the headlights, I saw a man crossing the road. He came out of the field to our left, walking toward the one on the right. What immediately struck me was that he was completely naked. His skin was oddly pale, flat beige, almost like a dull gray. But that's not what stuck with me. It was the way he moved. He didn't walk like a drunk or someone hurt. It was more like he didn't weigh anything. His steps were slow and floaty, almost like he was forcing his body to move forward. His arms hung loose, his head tilted slightly down. He never turned towards us, no reaction to the lights, the sound, nothing. He crossed slowly and disappeared into the field on the other side. We were silent for a couple of seconds, then my friend muttered, "Was he naked?" And then suddenly accelerated. We drove back toward the main road, not saying much. I wasn't scared exactly, but I felt this deep, uneasy knot in my stomach. Like what I saw didn't make sense, not just the man, but the entire moment. The next day, out of curiosity, we went back in the afternoon. We recognized the spot easily because of the twisted tree by the roadside. But when we looked around, there was nothing. No trail, no path, no house nearby. Just two big fields and the same quiet road cutting through. I have no rational explanation for what we saw, but I know what I saw. And I know it wasn't normal. Again, it's another quite interesting story. It's not really something that is highly disturbing. It's not something that is stressful. Actually, it's quite funny. But at the same time, if this happened during daytime, I think it would have been less scary. The way they describe his movement, this man's movement, the way he moved like it was made out of paper, I guess. It's almost like he was forcing his body to move forward. So it's kind of like a kite. Not really sure if this is a ghost. So I'm looking at the comments. Someone asked, that would definitely creep me out too. Did you see his face? No, that's the part that made it worse. He never looked at us. His head was slightly down the whole time because it was dark probably. So there's another comment, and I think it's quite interesting. The first thing that comes to mind is that this was an Alzheimer's patient. So I've never seen an Alzheimer's patient in person, let alone like their habits. According to this comment, they say that they often are restless and walk around their house at night. So their aunt and uncle took care of aunt's mom who had Alzheimer's, and she walked into their cousin's room naked one night. So that could be the case. Not really sure. But if that's true, it was an Alzheimer's patient, that would be I would be really sad. I hope that person is fine and unharmed. I just hope for safety and the best for that person if that's the case. Alright, on to the next one. So this story is titled The Man. Just The Man, that's it. And it's by user MysteryMan82. And this one is quite disturbing and it's quite long. So I hope you guys would enjoy this one. Here goes. I'm a male, 26, and this happened around 3 years ago when the US was practically recovered from COVID. I used to live in Long Island, New York, which is where this story takes place. For just a quick backstory for those who didn't grow up in New York, there is a huge railroad that connects lots of towns together, and the farthest it goes up to New York City. I took a business opportunity where I need to go up to the city every day for work as an engineer, and I would get on a train to go to the city as early as 6 a.m. and getting home sometimes it would be as late as 11 p.m. Before taking this opportunity, I was never on the railroad during times like this, and I quickly came to learn that it was practically the same people on the train each time. All people going to the city and back for work, and I normally saw no new faces on my rides going there and back. One day though, that changed. I was on a late train, probably around 10 or 11 p.m. at night during the winter time, so it was as dark as the night got around those times. I ran to catch the railroad on time to get me home, so as you can normally expect, no matter the time, I couldn't find a seat on the train. I chose to stand next to the doors and was accompanied by two men who looked around my age, just chopping up a good conversation, and a man. He looked about to be in his late 50s. He was wearing sort of a Hawaiian shirt, which was unbuttoned around 2 buttons, and his chest hair stuck out. He wore khakis, a belt, and attached to his shirt pocket, he had what seemed to be a business keycard on a retractable wire, which the clear sleeve it was in was yellowing. He was white, balding, but the hair I could see was gray, and he was more heavy set, but what I really remember are his eyes. Normally these kind of details wouldn't be so prominent in my mind, but his mannerisms were nothing but out of the ordinary. The way this man examined the other two standing next to the doors, the ones in deep conversation, it was uncanny. His eyes were deep in their sockets. They were downturned, so the insides of his eyes closer to his nose were higher set and the outside corners, with a look that was so tired and sad, and his lips stayed in such a pouting expression that it nearly looked like he was taking sympathy for those men. The worst part? Every time they would make a joke, they would chuckle, but he would laugh loud, louder than anyone would if they were even supposed to be included in the conversation. Just to keep my own privacy, I won't disclose which town exactly on Long Island I lived in, but I will say it is one of the last stops of the train. The man definitely made me unsettled, but I didn't think to change my spot on the train. It was packed and I was on the very first cart so that when I got to my destination, I could leave as soon as possible. I figured that I would wait to see if the man got off on one of the stops before me, and I wish I did. He didn't seem like a threat to me because he was so hyper-focused on these two guys, but once we got to their stop, he took a few steps, basically following them out the cart until he saw me. I was staring. I'm not proud of it, but I had 2 headphones in, listening to music, and I felt like this man had to be studied, and I accidentally just drew all the attention to myself. Something in his eyes switched. For just a second, it was horrifying. His eyes looked joyful, full of some type of childlike joy on Christmas, and right then, it was as if his feet just stopped, like they were dried in concrete, and he just stayed on the train. We were a few stops away from my stop, and I had no doubt in my mind that if this guy seeing me made him stop from looking off at one stop, there is only one other stop he will get off at. Mine. Now, I know this sounds like the dumbest thing ever, but I walked home from getting off the train. I'm a big guy, not super tall, but tall enough that most guys don't tower over me, and I'm not weak, so I never had anything to really worry about. Yeah, I wasn't scared of this guy himself and what he could do, but it's more of his intentions. I'm a guy who wouldn't fight someone for fun, and it's something that would be my last resort. And the last thing I wanted to do was throw hands with this man with such a sorrowful look in his eyes. Then, it was my stop. I got off, and with no surprise, he did too. I started walking at a pace that didn't scream, I'm scared or I need to get away, but it was a pace that looked normal for me, but peering from behind my shoulder, I saw him matching my pace, and it looked so unnatural, uncomfortable, like it hurt for him to walk at that pace. He continued to follow my pace, and no stores nearby were open for me to go to, so as I approached my house, I remembered the hill that you had to climb to reach the street. And looking at the man still matching my pace to the very best of his abilities, he looked exhausted. So I just had to pray that he wouldn't be able to climb the hill as fast as me. I approached the bottom of the hill and sprinted as fast as I could and didn't stop until I reached my house and jumped over my backyard fence, instead of going up my front porch to open the front door on a chance that he's fast enough to see me enter my house. My back door is a sliding door, however, and I couldn't unlock it unless I was in the house, so the only thing I could do was sit and wait in the bush, and I wasn't too scared of him seeing me in the pitch dark, but I was scared of him hearing me if I moved too much. I peered through the fence as I saw him climb up the hill, walking at a more comfortable looking pace for him. He started looking around, looking for a sign of me. Nothing. He approached closer, just looking around my street, and under a streetlight I saw him. More like I saw his eyes, full of rage. No longer the joyful or sorrowful eyes I had once seen. I watched him pace back and forth on the road for a long time until eventually he turned around and went down the hill once again. I waited for a long time before going into my house and going to bed. The day I took off of work, I went to the police and made a report. And for the rest of the day, I decided that I wouldn't go straight for my stop on the railroad to the city anymore, and found a string of having to hop off one train to another around 3 times before going to the city, in hopes that the man would take the direct route. I never saw the man after that. This is the first time I had fully retold my story since it had happened, and I apologize for how long it is, but every time I think about this story for too long, it reminds me of the people that are out there, and you have no idea what intentions they have behind their eyes. Stay safe, everyone, and thank you for listening to my story. Now that is really scary. It was a weird stranger. We have no idea what their intentions are. The fact that his eyes turned into rage, turned into an angry instead of this sorrowful or joyful. It's what? How is it joyful? What was he thinking? Like seeing the protagonist looking like Christmas, looking like birthday, and then he was following the protagonist. Why would that person follow the protagonist to the area next to his house? It's very clear that this man had no direction, had no destination. Like the only purpose that he dropped off that stop was basically to follow this person, like to follow the protagonist and do whatever. Okay, so another one from Dumb B Word 6969, and it's titled An Encounter I Can't Explain. For as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with the paranormal. Maybe that makes me more susceptible to unexplained paranormal events. My grandpa lived in the family's basement when I was a young child, and I'd always joke about how I want to move into his room after he dies, because I thought it would be cool to live in the haunted room. When I was 5th or 6th grade, my grandpa passed away, and within 2 weeks, I moved into his room. After he died, all of us children got a creepy vibe from the basement and would do our best to not be down there when the lights are off. I was scared of what could be lingering in the dark, but I was excited to have my own little apartment. Anytime I had to turn off the living room lights, I'd run as fast as I could into my room and turn the lights on. There were many times I'd run to my room and the lights wouldn't turn on. It was odd since my dad had renovated the room and updated the lights before I moved in. I'd have to run through the dark basement and find my dad to replace the lights again. Before the winter, my dad installed a fireplace to the basement, and thankfully, he left it lit most nights throughout the winter. The fireplace was set directly across my bedroom door. I'd leave my door cracked, so even if my lights didn't work, I'd have the lights from the fireplace. One night, when I was in 6th grade, I woke suddenly to a noise from the fireplace. I looked up and saw a shadow of a man who looked exactly like my dad at the end of my bed. I assumed the noise was my bed reloading the wood. I laid in bed watching the shadow, but the longer I looked, the more I realized it was the shadow of my dad. It was translucent, but it was a full figure. It was 3D. I could see the arms and legs clearly and the hole where its eyes should be. It was just standing at the end of my bed watching me, but I didn't feel scared and eventually fell back asleep. When I woke up in the morning, I was getting ready for school and noticed a strange bruise on the top of my left foot. The more I looked at the bruise, the more I noticed that it looked like a handprint. There were fingerprints wrapped around the top of my foot and a thumb by my ankle. I showed my dad and asked if he was in the basement while I was sleeping and if he had come to my room to watch me sleep. He was visibly concerned, thinking a man was in our house the night before watching me. He assured me that he was in the basement and that I probably got the bruise playing with my siblings. I told him about the shadowy figure I saw at the end of my bed and told me it was my grandpa watching over me. Nothing came of it, and I just took it as my dad's thinking my grandpa's ghost was leaving me a sign from heaven. After that, my parents would come to check on me regularly. There were many times they would talk about coming in my room, and I'd sit up to have a full conversation with them, then fall back asleep. I don't remember this happening at all. To this day, I still have a part of the bruise on my foot. It's right where the palm would have been. Anytime my parents see it, they ask me where the bruise came from and why I always have a bruise in the same spot. I retell the story and they just brush it off, saying ghosts are real. It is very interesting. I mean, as a person who somewhat believes that the supernatural exists, I think that could be true. That could be a true story. So it's quite complicated because strange things, happenings, sightings even, sometimes they happen, and they happen to me and my family members, and my family members wouldn't lie about it, because if something strange happened, they literally tell me, and it was genuine. And sometimes strange things happen to me as well, something that I couldn't really explain or rationalize. When it comes to a story like this, I get it's gonna be really confusing, because there's literally a mark on your foot. You can't just brush it off. The fact that they keep getting the bruise in the same spot, it's weird. It's really weird. And the reason why I think this could be true is that this kind of experience is not rare. It's not very uncommon. I've heard a lot of stories from my own family members as well, and they wouldn't lie about this to me. And when they were telling me about it, they're telling me the story about it, they seem genuine. So yeah, on to the next story. This one is called Strange Encounter in the Woods by 𝓈𝓉𝒶𝓎. So this one's gonna be mysterious. I live near a patch of woods, not far from a few camping sites. There's an old basketball court close by, stone floor, 2 rusty hoops that barely stay up. It's pretty busted, but it's our go-to spot when my friends and I want to hang out. It was a warm day last summer. We headed out to play some basketball, mess around, and just chill. Everything was normal at first, just us messing around. Then we heard barking. It wasn't loud at first, but it felt off. Like the pitch kept changing. Sometimes it sounded close, sometimes super far away, almost like it was moving around fast. My friend shrugged it off, some dog from one of the campsites nearby. I didn't say much, didn't want to seem weird for being creeped out by a dog, so we kept playing. About 10 minutes later, I missed a shot pretty bad, and the ball bounced off deep into the woods. Of course, they made me go grab it since I was the one who messed up. As I walked towards it, something felt off. I couldn't explain why, just had that tight feeling in my gut, like I shouldn't be there. The bark kicked in again, this time louder, like it was really close. Still, I didn't want to make a big deal, so I kept going. I bent down to pick up the ball, and that's when it hit me. This sharp pain in my palm out of nowhere, almost like my body was screaming at me to get out. I grabbed the ball and ran back, hand throbbing like crazy. I told my friends I was done for the day, that my hand hurt too much to play. They asked what happened, but I just said I didn't know. They kept playing and I sat off to the side, trying to chill out, hoping the pain would go away. After a while, the barking stopped. Things went quiet. Then I realized I had to pee, like really bad. Asked if they wanted to go home yet, but they said no. They were still having fun. So I walked behind the court, deeper into the woods where they couldn't see me, and I relieved myself. That's when things got creepy again. Felt like someone was watching me. Not just nearby, right there, like behind a tree or something. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then, as I started walking back, the barking started again. This time, it was loud, and it honestly felt like it was right behind me. My hands started hurting again, even worse than before. I ran back and told my friend I had to leave, made up some excuse about needing to help my mom. As soon as I got farther from the woods, everything started to feel normal again. Pain faded, barking stopped. I never really talked about it. Figured no one would believe me or they'd just laugh it off. But something happened that day and it still messes with me a little. I don't know what it was, but my best guess is a skinwalker. Ooh, we have some cryptid action here. That is freaky. And by freaky, I don't mean like the modern meaning of freaky. The fact that the barking just moves very fast. It's almost like the creature is mimicking the sound of a dog while trying to, I don't know, like circle the area. It could be multiple dogs. And then the fact that after hearing the barking that is so close, like right behind the protagonist, their hand started to hurt. I don't know if there's any connection between this unknown creature with like physical pain. And I do think that protagonist here did the right thing. I think whether if it's actually a skinwalker or not, I think the vibes are just off probably. Even if it's not a skinwalker, even if it's not supernatural, sometimes things just like that. Like sometimes when you're at the office or maybe like in a party or something, and then you feel like your head is just hurting because you feel like something's not right, and then you leave and then actually nothing really happened. It's just that sometimes the vibes are just not for you or something. I don't know. I would imagine that what happened to OP right here, it was something different, and yeah, it could be skinwalker. Alright, so that's about it for this episode. So we had what? Weird driving encounters, shadowy figures, creepy individuals, and possibly cryptids. Let me know in the comments if you'd like for more, or if you'd like me to read other subreddits, and consider checking out my channel if you'd like to see more content and subscribing to support my channel. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you made it until the end, you're simply the best. And yeah, see ya. Bye.